You know what's worse than hearing an unfamiliar noise coming from your car? Hearing that noise and not knowing what's causing it. And so today's video, we are going to be answering the question, what is the beeping noise on my Subaru? There's a lot of noises that your Subaru can make, especially with modern cars that have been made within the last 5 to 10 years with the advancement of safety technologies and things like that. And that's one thing that Subaru is really well known for, is all of their safety equipment. If you look at the window sticker on a new car, and specifically with Subaru especially, you will see a line item of 10, 15 plus Subaru safety systems, all these advanced technologies. And if one of them's not operating properly, it could trigger an alert and a noise inside your car. So in today's video, I'm going to be answering the most common questions that I get asked about beeping noises on our Subarus. And it doesn't matter if you have a Subaru that was made this year or even 5+ years ago. A lot of these technologies have been around for many years, and so it can be relevant for many different Subaru models, even if they're not brand new. If you're new here, my name is Alex. I like to make weekly Subaru videos. If you want to follow along, consider subscribing down below. If you have any questions, as always, leave those comments down below. The first one on today's list is actually very common. It usually is something we encounter during the first test drive on a Subaru, and something that if you haven't experienced yet with your Subaru, you probably will experience it very soon if you have one of these modern Subarus with all the safety technology. So one of the first ones is going to be lane departure alert. And by the way, some of these are very obvious, some of them are not so obvious, and I'm doing them in no particular order. So this one, while it may seem obvious, it's one that comes up a lot. Have somebody come in and they say, hey, my car keeps beeping at me, I don't know what's going on. So I say, let's hop in, let's go for a test drive. We get in, and if you get just too close to the edge of the road, if you have lane departure turned on, which by default a new Subaru typically has this turned on, you can turn it off, but most people have it on by default. If you get too close to the edge of the road, you'll hear a beeping noise. And here's an example right here. So as you can see with this, as you get too close to the edge of the road or even cross the line with that lane departure on, you'll hear that beeping tone. It is important to note that this does not work if there are lane markings not present. So you have to have lines in the road, whether they are the white line or the yellow line. If those aren't there, if you're on a back road, the lane departure alert is not going to activate. Along these same lines, Subarus also have the ability to do lane centering. And if you weren't familiar, a lot of these safety technologies are controlled with these what they call eyesight cameras. They act as a second set of eyes looking out at the road ahead, helping you avoid collision by maybe automatic braking in emergency situations, or even detecting those lane markings and keeping you centered in your lane, just like with that lane departure alert. But there's another feature called lane centering, and this can be activated when you have your cruise control on. You turn the lane centering on with this button here. You'll see a little white steering wheel on the top right of your gauge, and that'll light up green whenever it's active. Now, whenever that deactivates, maybe the lane markings aren't visible, the cameras can't see them, or if you take your hands off the wheel, or if you force it out of the lane, you'll hear a beeping noise, and that's because your lane centering has been deactivated. Number 3, it's an obvious one, but it's really not obvious to most people because it's so subtle and can turn on and off without you really knowing, and that is going to be in the center display here. You'll see the little lane markings highlighted in orange with an orange snowflake. And as I'm saying this, you're probably realizing, oh yeah, I know exactly what that is. Well, when the temperature falls below a certain degree, it will turn this on. I looked at the owner's manual and it shows that once the temperature falls into 37 degrees Fahrenheit or below, it's kind of funny that we're right at 37 degrees outside, but once it falls at 37 or below, you'll hear a beep and your ice on road ahead, or potential for ice on road ahead alert, will light up. Once it gets to 41 degrees or higher, that will turn off. So if you are in an area like where we are here in the Midwest, our temperatures fluctuate quite a bit sometimes, and so that might come on and go on and off intermittently. That is just one alert here recently, as our temperatures have changed here in the month of December, where people, and we got some snow. We usually don't get snow this early on, but we got some snow early December here, and people are starting to get that alert, and I'm having customers come in and they're saying, what's going on? What's wrong with my car? I heard this beep and this little alert here. And it'll actually tell you on the display when it comes on, when it beeps, it'll say ice on road ahead or something to that effect. So you know exactly what it is, but if you don't see it right away, you might not know. Another alert that you might not realize exists on your car, at least maybe not until you drive it for a while, is going to be hidden up here in the touchscreen display. Now, some Subarus also have it hidden up here right behind the steering wheel, and that is called driver monitoring system. I'll show you how to access this. We click on settings, we scroll over to car settings and driver monitoring system. Here is where you can turn this on and off. Now, what this does, it does a couple things, but one thing it will do is it will alert you whenever you are not paying attention. If the car detects that you are distracted, maybe you are looking off to the right or the left side of the road, you're looking down at even if you're at a complete stop, it will tell you on the display, it'll say pay attention. So just another little gentle reminder to tell you to stay focused while you're driving. So just a safety system there, but it also does another thing. The vehicles that are equipped with memory seats, this is important. If it has memory seats, it can also link up your facial recognition to do memory seats and memory mirrors instead of having to click the button. If you have a new 2026 Crosstrek that has driver monitoring, the driver system there, those don't have memory seats, so you won't have that. But just an important distinction to be made there. Have you ever been sitting at a stoplight and maybe you're in a lot of traffic, you've been standing there for a long time, maybe you're waiting for a train to finish crossing. So maybe you put your car in park and you're just chilling, you're just hanging out. Well, all of a sudden, the cars in front of you start moving ahead, you don't realize, and the person behind you is honking their horn the second that you don't move. And so Subaru has a really cool feature now built into a lot of their cars using their eyesight camera system, and that is lead vehicle alert. So the way this works, the cameras detect the vehicles have started moving ahead. If you haven't started moving just a couple seconds later, it's going to beep on the display just like this. So very gentle, kind of reminding you, hey, cars are moving ahead, hopefully before the person behind you is blowing their horn. And if you were curious about whether or not this is turned on in your car and you want to access it, you would go to your car settings. We're going to go to eyesight from the very top and click on, you might have to scroll down just a little bit, make sure lead vehicle moving monitor is turned on. If it is off, it won't be lit up. If it is on, it'll be lit up blue. Let's talk about Subaru's seatbelt alarm next. And not the obvious, hey, I don't have my seatbelt on and my alarm is going off, because that's pretty obvious. Whenever you don't have your seatbelt on in your Subaru and you're driving, you're gonna hear a beeping tone and you're gonna see a display on the dash that tells you to put your seatbelt back on. And then it even gets louder, as we know, to annoy you to the point where you hopefully put your seatbelt on. But anyways, we're not talking about that. We're talking about you have your seatbelt on, but your Subaru's seatbelt alarm is still going off. Why might that be? Well, here's a few scenarios that I've encountered myself, and many of my customers have encountered it from time to time, and it's not always obvious right away. So one reason is maybe you have something in the back seat. Maybe you have a backpack, you've got your lunchbox, whatever it might be. And right now, the sensor, so all of the seats have a sensor in them that are, it's a weight sensor. So if there's enough weight back there, it will trigger the seatbelt alarm if you get moving. Well, right now, that sensor is not going off. And the way you can tell, by the way, if the alarm is going off is up here near the dome light, you will see a red light with the seatbelt icon letting you know if any passengers don't have their seatbelt on. Well, in this case, my seatbelt alarm is not activated because there's not enough weight back there, but it might intermittently ding, and that is because if you are taking turns, if enough of that weight is being pushed into the seat, that gravity is pushing that down, that could intermittently trigger the seatbelt alarm. I have had that happen in the past. Another very common scenario that we encounter is, like many Subaru owners, I myself included, we like to travel with our pets. And so if you have your dog in the back, a lot of times, at least my dog, she doesn't sit still back there. She's usually bouncing from one window to the next if I've got her in the back seat here, assuming that the seats are up like this. If you have your seats down, you can ignore this because the seatbelt alarm is not going to go off if you have your seats folded down. But if they are up in the up position like they are here, and your dog is bouncing from one side to the next, that sensor may not consistently go off. It may just intermittently go off based on how much weight your dog has pressing down into the base of the seats. So that's just one other scenario when your Subaru's seatbelt alarm may go off inadvertently without you realizing why it's doing it. Another very common one that comes up when customers are driving, they might hear an intermittent ding and there's nothing on their display telling them, hey, what is this alert? What is this beeping or dinging noise? And it is almost 9 times out of 10 their smartphone. So if you have your smartphone set to silent, you won't hear any dinging. But if you have your ringer turned on and you get a text message, you will hear a ding even if you are not on your Apple CarPlay or your Android Auto. Now, if you are on Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, you'll hear the ding and you'll see the message up here where you're getting a text message. It'll display that person's name. But if you're not, if you're on any of the other screens outside of that Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, you'll hear the ding and you won't see a message there. So that is another common one that I have customers encounter and oftentimes ask me about. Along those same lines, if you have your phone connected through your Subaru with the Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, a lot of people like to do this. It's kind of best practice now with modern cars. Maybe you are in one of your navigation apps, and I use, depending on where I'm going, I'll use Waze or Google Maps very often. And if you don't have your settings adjusted properly here, you might hear some dinging even if the navigation is not set. So maybe you don't have your destination going, but you have the app running in the background. An example is maybe you are approaching railroad tracks. My Waze app will have a little alert, a little audible tone every time I'm near railroad tracks, even if I don't have my navigation set to a destination. So if I've used it previously and it's still open, running in the background, you'll hear a dinging sometimes for different alerts like that, or even speed alerts. So if you go into your settings inside Waze, and I'm sure some of the other navigation apps have something similar, if you go under alerts and reports, you can have a speed alert set. So your app is actually telling you whenever you are above that speed threshold. So if you do have that turned on here, you'll hear that beep. If you don't want that on, you just simply turn it off. So that is just one of many of the notifications that you might be receiving from your Subaru's Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. So maybe you previously used your Waze navigation app to get to your destination. You're already there, you're familiar with where you're going, and you seemingly close out of the app. Well, it's actually still operating in the background. CarPlay is still active. If we are driving along and there's an alert, whether it's a speed alert, railroad crossing, whatever it might be, even though we don't have a destination en route, it can still send notifications through a beeping or an audible tone. And I'll just show you an example here. We'll get out on the road. And just as an example, your Waze app can have multiple notifications, not just speed and railroad crossings. You can also have crash up ahead, police up ahead, traffic cameras, and things like that. And these are all settings that you can adjust on your own within your app. Those are the most common alerts, and so hopefully now that you are familiar with them, it won't cause any sort of stress or anxiety the next time you may encounter them on your Subaru. As always, if you have any questions, leave those comments down below. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. If you want to follow along, subscribe before you take off, and I will see you in the next video.